ball. Root down, store that energy on the back or right foot. T stance, L stance, bow stance. Get a good stretch. Sit back and lower yourself. Pivot, root down, T and ball. Bring it in. Out on an L, move that energy, part the wild horse's mane. Good Tai Chi posture. Do not follow your hand. Lower yourself, twist, T, L, bow stance. Sit back and lower. Pivot, center with a T. Out on an L, move that energy. Where is your bow and arrow? Sit back, lower, pivot, center with a T. Out on an L, bow stance. Here's your snack. Sit back and lower. Pivot, holding your ball in a T stance. Out on an L, part the wild horse's mane. Flip that hand and join it. Cloud hands. Sit back, lower. Pivot, 12 o'clock, stem and cup. Pivot with your front foot out to the 9 o'clock. Flip the hands, close the feet. Middle, stem and cup. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, flip the hands, open the feet. 12 o'clock, stem and cup. 11, 10, 9 o'clock, only flip your hands. 12 o'clock, stem and cup. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, flip the hands. 2 things happen. Middle or cup. 11, 10, 9, 2 things happen. We want to get out of cloud hands. So 3 o'clock, we only flip. Shift our weight to the right and come up as a golden cockerel. Other side. And kicking out. Perhaps today's lesson, okay? On a T stance, holding your ball. We're going to grasp the bird's tail. First, we're going to ward off our opponent. Out on an L, move that ball. Use your forearm to push your opponent away. Remember that the bottom hand advances. Turn the hips and waist, reposition your hands as if you were grasping the bird's tail and pulling it back, looking back, sitting back. Then turning with your hips and waist, contacting with your wrists, pushing out from the middle of your body, separating both hands, rolling back, and coming up and pushing out forward. What we do on one side, we do on the other side. Sit back, sit down, pivot, left hand on the bottom to hold your ball in a T stance. We're going to ward off. Out on an L. Push your opponent away. Turn your hips and waist. Grasp the bird's tail. Sit down, sit back, look back. Turn, square, contact, push them out. Separate your hands and roll back. And spiral up and power forward. Closing form. Sit down, lower. Pivot with your left heel. Pivot out with your right heel. Pivot in with your right heel. Shift your weight to the left. Put your right hand inside the cross as you elevate and rotate on the wrists so that now both palms are facing you. The power of the left wrist pushes out so both palms are facing the floor. You're going to close by dropping your shoulders, flexing your knees, tucking your elbows and wrists, lifting up off the ground, and down, and close your form on a 50-50. Okay? So we're very near the end. It doesn't seem that we're going to meet any more challenges other than cloud hands being maybe one of the more tougher ones, okay? So I want to review cloud hands and move into grasping of the bird's tail, okay? And I think you'll like it, you'll enjoy it. So we said that cloud hands, the best way to learn cloud hands is to picture a old-fashioned circular clock in front of us. Not a small one, not a medium, but a huge one, so that we can get out to the different numbers, especially the extremes of at the 9 and 3 o'clock locations. We also said that this is the only movement in yang style that advances, not forward and backwards, but only sideways, as if we were playing on the keys of a piano, or like we're crab walking, okay? And we also said that our feet have to be parallel. We also said that the toes lead the movement. The toes lead the movement rather than the heel leading the movement, okay? Which is, to me, very awkward. It relies heavily on the shifting of weight. You need to balance on one before you can shift your weight on the other. So therefore, it becomes very smooth, very flowing, and it'll help enhance whatever we're doing on the top, which is trying to be flowing, billowy, soft clouds. We said we would take our feet apart and then join them with the hands, and we did so. So we're going to review that, and then we're going to heavily focus on how to transition into cloud hands, which is yet another challenge, okay? So let's do it all from the beginning and then break it down. Not all the movements, but starting with parting of the wild horse's mane to the left. Here we go. Good Tai Chi posture. Out on an L, move that ball, part the wild horse's mane. Sit back and lower yourself. Pivot. Center yourself on a T. Out onto an L, part the wild horse's mane. Listen carefully. You do not sit back now. What you do is you flip the forward hand. You no longer see the palm. You join it with your back hand and you see the palm. You are still on a bow stance. You sit back and lower. We twist and our hands follow our twist. The only thing we do is we have a cup for the lower hand. We are at 12 o'clock. Our feet are kind of goofy, but they are correct. We want to move out into the 9 o'clock position. So we use the heel of our forward or left foot to pivot to get to 9 o'clock. When we did that short span of motion, our hands followed us because we're using our hips and waist and the power of the energy stored in our foot. At 9 o'clock, which we're at, we need to do two things. One, we're going to close the stance, flip the hands. We're going in the opposite direction by using our hips and waist. We are now addressed to 12 o'clock. Do you have a stem on the top hand, your right hand? And are you holding a cup with your left hand 2 inches below your navel? Advance to 1, 2, 3 o'clock, two things happen. The bottom hand comes up, the top hand, no longer you see your palm, but you also open. Move your hips and waist. What happens? When you shift your weight, you have a stem and a cup. 11, 10, 9 o'clock, as you move your waist and not your hands, you can flip the top hand so the bottom hand now rises and you close your stance. Moving your hips and waist gets you to 12 o'clock, stem and cup. 1, 2, 3 o'clock. Two things happen. Flip the hands, open the feet. Middle or cup, 11, 10, 9 o'clock, only flip the hands. 12 o'clock, stem and cup. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, two things happen. Flip the hands, close the feet. Middle or cup. 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, flip the hands, open the feet. 12 o'clock, middle or stem. We want to get out of cloud hands. At 3 o'clock, we only flip the hands. At 12 o'clock, we shift your weight and we come up as a golden cockerel. Okay? So, yes, it took us a few more seconds longer because you had to listen to me, but those are all the elements of how we should do cloud hands. So if I were to do it in our regular pace, we can try this, we can see how, where we need to work on it, okay? So do it with me in a little medium pace. Out on an L, part the wild horse's mane. Flip the forward hand, join it with the back hand. Sit down, sit back, pivot, 12 o'clock cup. Pivot out, 9 o'clock, flip the hands, join the feet. Middle or cup. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, flip the hands, open the feet. Middle or cup. 9 o'clock, only flip the hands. 12 o'clock, middle or cup. 3 o'clock, flip the hands, close the feet. Middle or cup. 9 o'clock, flip the hands, open the feet. 12 o'clock, stem and cup. Only flip the hands at 3 o'clock. Shift your weight to the left, up, golden cockerel, okay? So it's fun, but you have to make sure you have all the elements because once you get into that mode, you may forget. So we are beginning students. We need to look at things a little bit more carefully and spend the time to be a little bit more patient, okay? And what I was instructing you orally was mainly feet and what to do with your hands, but I assume that you know that the top hand, you always see the palms and you always look at the tips of your finger, whereas the bottom is almost like a automatic thing where you're turning on a rounded rectangle or ellipse and you're turning with your hips and waist. So can you do this with me? Can you just set up your hand and use your hips and waist? I want to see if your hips and waist know what to do. Do they know what to do after warming up with our warm-up exercise? Okay, your hands can do anything, but you know there's a specific way. But you know that the hands are not leading the movement. It's your commander of your body, your hips and your waist. So put your hands down and just move your hips and waist from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Do it for a few more times. Do I see everybody doing and using their hips and waist? All right, now, automatic, don't stop. Just put one hand on the top, one hand on the bottom. Do not move your hands. Do not move your hands. Somebody will say, well, we can't help it. Our hips and waists are helping us move our hands. That's exactly what I mean. When I say don't move your hands, the hands do not direct the movement. The hips and waists are doing all the work for us. But our mind is also thinking everything through. So we cannot only rely on hips and waists. All right? So actually, the faster you move your hips and waists, the faster your hands flow, right? The slower you move your hips and waists, the slower the hands move. So that's a very good example of the hands go for the ride. And where is your vision? Your vision is at the fingertips of your top hand. Fingertips at your top hand, but looking beyond into infinity. The vision does not just stop at the fingertips, but goes beyond, okay? So that's one of the drills that you could practice and do all the time. It gives you a sense of relaxation. It also makes the connection that your mind tells your body that you're using your hips and waists. You're using your body in a whole way. We also remember that it's like a long rectangle or an ellipse that's rounded. So with that in mind, besides the clock, we're going to have to round out the edges, round out the corners. And we do that. Okay? Do that by curving our hands to make that rounded edge. The one thing that you may look at also is that whenever we have a stem and a cup, I have a tendency to run away with my top hand, but really what you should do is synchronize so that the top hand at 12 o'clock and the bottom hand, which is a cup, should stay together. So stay together. Okay? So that's another element that you need to address. So remember we talked about good Tai Chi posture being posted straight up, and we said that if we were not adhering to our imaginary cable or silk silver thread, we would do this, a natural, sort of a natural tendency if you didn't know Tai Chi to follow the forward hand. We know that's very incorrect and could cause an accident by me falling. Our head is very heavy. In doing cloud hands, we have to address the fact that although we are straight up as a cable, we're allowed to spin and rotate on our cable. But every time we take that move, we are still in good Tai Chi posture. We're just swiveling around on that cable. So at no time can I reach out to my hands. Okay? You're going to have to keep that good Tai Chi posture. Yeah. So remember, Tai Chi is a discipline. So it means a lot of things that it is a discipline. But for us, right away, we have to be disciplined to learn good habits in Tai Chi. Okay? You're going to have to restrict yourself from doing something incorrect. But remember, we are all on our journey. We're allowed to make mistakes, but we can regroup and fix those mistakes and make it a little better. We can refine our movement, but we have to have a start. Everybody has to have a platform in which they can work.